Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right.
I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
I'm alive, so that's a good thing. So here we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell me where you're living at the moment?
I'm actually just outside of Washington, D.C. in Virginia.
Okay.
hmm
Um, so, what inspired you to adopt a vegan lifestyle?
Wow. Well, like a lot of us can say, I wish it was a lot sooner that I had come to it. But, my original earlier career has been in animal behavior, specifically with pets, and um, always worked with shelters and whatnot, with education, humanity education and safety and everything like that. And then even over those years, early on, not having as much expanded knowledge because we have the internet now and social media and everything. Really never knew about what was going on with dogs and the dog and cat meat trade. And so I ended up getting involved in that for a while. And in learning about what was going on, also considering those same kind of things happen with farmed animals, whether they're farmed for food or fur or, for testing or medical purposes, whatever, they're all going through this. And it's all been very detrimental, the environment and everything. So I ended up rescuing, I actually was doing behavioral consulting, and then also transports with the rescues coming over from Korea mostly. And so one of them stuck, and that's Minjin. Bring her over here, but she's snoozing in her bed. And yeah, so she's been the main motivation, but also, of course, everything I see and read about is just really compelling and seems just like it's an imperative. Yeah.
Yes, something that needs to be addressed, and more people need to be informed, educated about it so that they can see what's happening and hopefully join us in creating a more compassionate world for all.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So you work with Beyond Cruelty Foundation, and what role do you believe education plays in promoting plant-based lifestyle, and how does Beyond Cruelty incorporate those into their initiatives?
Well, we actually have three main campaigns. But the overall encompassing campaign, of course, are all related, is our SDG 18 campaign, which is a Sustainable Development Goal 18 and this is a goal. So it's put very high because we are saying zero animal exploitation. And so my view is that if we set the bar very high, it allows us to progress without boundaries, towards that goal. And I think there's so much being done. There's some back and forth, forward and a little back, but so many more people getting involved and making that choice and realize the interconnectivity to everything around us. I mean, really, that I've come to understand and I collect research. This is why I'm head of research, because I collect it all. And of course, I'm reading it and viewing it and everything. And so it's just a very expansive systemic oppression of animals, and the reverberations of it is hitting a lot of the other goals, which is why we decided to take this approach with the sustainable development programs, because there's just so many blocks where animal exploitation, is hindering that. And it's very human centric anyway, the goals. There's not much in there, or the realization of that interconnectivity and those blocks.
And I know that Beyond Cruelty aims to address these issues through education, collaboration, and promotion of what's happening. And the second thing is, as a person who does research, I'm sure that it could be overwhelming for yourself to, to come upon that information, and you kind of have to digest it. And when you see, because I know when I see, a story about someone doing something to an animal, or how they came to do this, like the latest thing is some farms put up a dead baby where the cows are, so that they could keep giving milk, because if they see a baby, and it's just horrendous how people come up with these things on how to exploit and really be cruel.
I hadn't heard of that one, and it can be very devastating to think about and see and hear and read about everything that can happen and does happen, because it's real. And of course, it varies across the continent, but there's a lot that goes on in everybody's home area, they may not even know about, bringing awareness, I think is important, so that people can see and then kind of process it and be able to make the decision that they feel, they can live with. And it's really good that, the realization of the way it's embedded systemically it makes it kind of hard for people to go, well, gee, that sounds like a lot, how do I deal with that? And how do I, so the vegan society, basically states to whatever, to follow as much as humanly possible, so always trying, to do your best, to make a difference. And because it can be overwhelming, and it can be, when you're doing something about it, and you're taking action, that really helps, with that, what you're saying, overwhelmedness. I don't feel so overwhelmed at times. Yeah. But as long as I'm taking action, to not only with my personal choices and consumerism, but also how I bring, that awareness to people, the information. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I just want to re-emphasize how very important it is for people to speak up, get involved, sign letters, petitions, make phone calls, because I know some are under the impression that that doesn't amount to much, but it does.
It does, yes. Every action causes a reaction. That's right. The dynamics of physics, they say, but actually, it's true. It's true, because every time you put your voice forward, in whatever way, as long as it's not misinformation, and there's too much of that, actually fighting against the realities of this. But to be able to do that, and whenever I put something forward, even on social media, I want to back it up and say, well, here's where you can find it, and that's a big piece of what we do, and my role.
Okay. And also every little step, no matter how small, is a step forward.
Absolutely. Yep.
So meaning, like, it could mean anything. It could mean if you could only sign a petition, if you could only, just adopt a plant-based diet,
Mhm.
all those little things help us all.
Yes, exactly. First, people think about the animals, and that is the foremost because they're the ones, suffering the most. But, it helps us all because of that interconnectivity, the natural environment, the climate, and even oppression. We had been doing, and we're trying to get back to it. We're working on that. Uh, Actually, a webinar conference. And so what we've been doing is starting with, the introduction webinar, where I just briefly went over all of the SDGs and tried to show a little bit of how, and why these blocks are occurring with, the forward motion of the others, because of the ways that animal exploitation get in the way. And so we got through 1 through 5. We have some fabulous speakers, wonderful presentations. I really encourage people to check it out. We have a page that actually it's kind of like it appears like a regular website, sdg18.org. So that's just sdg18.org. And you can look on there and people can see, how to access the webinars, because they're already, they're all recorded. And once you register, which is all free, once you register through that process, then, you can go back and look at them. And like I said, it was some great people, so we stopped at 5, and I was so amazed, especially at number 5, So people are going to have to do a little research to see what I'm talking about, number 5. SDG 5, and then try to put their heads around, well, how does this relate? We'll go watch the webinar. Yeah.
And just again to reiterate, every little step that we take is like what you said before. It's a goal for zero animal exploitation. So, we're not going to achieve it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we will achieve it if we keep steady and strong and just, hold along,
Yeah.
keep moving forward, and not be distracted by everything that's going around the world also, because that sometimes can, make you maybe depressed and you're like, feel beaten, but don't do that, because then you are,
Yeah. Right.
And that usually is, sometimes like the meat and dairy, they fight the vegans and the vegan message, because they want to continue to exploit the animals for their profit. But just because they're going to do that, but if you stop buying and the interest drops, they're not going to continue to do that, because it's going to be no profit to them. So
that's right.
So,
yeah. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so we need to remember that every dollar we spend is a vote.
That's right. Yeah. Everything you do moves it forward. It's always going to make it better, for the animals and all those elements that are interconnected, that are detriments. It's always going to make it better. And that's empowering, it really is. And that gives people energy, to find out how to do maybe more, and go a little further. And that's wonderful. It's wonderful. The other thing to do, I think that's very encouraging, especially people who are just getting started, is to, look at what other people are doing and organizations are doing, to improve the situation. I was reading an email from one of our previous speakers who's putting together a book, and it's actually, a book on economy and making, the shift, because, well, what is really good, and what's sustainable? I use that word a lot. What's sustainable for this moving forward? And then there's another one of our coalition members, who I just love, who is a lawyer with he's a animal rights lawyer, but he, his organization, he's in Pakistan. I mean, his organization's in Pakistan. And then Pakistan went through a really big flood, and so all their groundwater, all of their water was affected there with whatever else ran in there, So they actually got funding to dig wells for the communities. And so with these wells, they're not only providing water for the humans, but also the animals in the community, including the wildlife. Because it's there, they actually have troughs, where animals can even come up at night, whatever, and have clean water. And then also they started gardening, and it's all plant gardening, And I was trying to make this connection between them and another, one of our coalition members who they're very much involved in veganic gardening, because we don't need animal manure, livestock manure to grow food, green matter, that normally occurs in a forest, it's those micro animals, little teeny ones in the soil that actually process it, so that we can grow really nutrient rich foods. So that's not a good excuse, to say, we need them for that, we need to oppress them just for that, so anyway, yeah, there's so many alternatives. That's another thing, with the vegan alternatives. I have a tendency to, because I got into people asking me, because of course Claire, who is the person who founded the foundation and is the president, is involved in investing, vegan and environmental and climate friendly, right? People would be asking me when I'm, posting things is, well, what about this product and that product? So I said, well, we'll try them out, so I could say, yeah, this is a good choice. This is a good choice, But I think, it's just as good, actually. I mean, even if people say, well, that's too expensive. Well, look at beans and legumes and, a lot of vegetables that when you're saying protein, and what you need with your essential vitamins and everything. It's all there. It's all there in plants. So yeah.
So tell just any last words for this interview that you want to just share with our viewers.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. I loved your podcast. I would say that, that if you're just getting started or you're considering it, just take a look around and keep an open mind about, all of the impacts and everywhere with the animals and people and the environment. And then also when it comes to choices, that's very possible. And it's not like we have to have tons of money, and eggs are real expensive anyway. And then, there's the epidemic things and everything, but that's a lot. And so I just think, people who are in veganism now, and, keep your foot in there with the awareness, and keep putting it out there for people who can, come along and in the time. And I think it's just a really great thing. Yeah.
Keep up the good fight. Keep up the good fight.
Keep up the good fight, yes.
And as I always say, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. So go vegan.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It's the imperative. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for being on the Vegan Pulse. And I will have information on Beyond Cruelty Foundation and the SDG 18 website as well, so people can go check it out and perhaps partner, donate, contribute in some manner. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.